The dirt they threw away. My name is Becca Hartwell. I'm 29 years old. And less than a year ago, my father passed away and left his estate split 50-50 between me and my sister. Sounds fair, right? On paper, at least. But here's the thing about paper, it only shows you what someone wanted you to see. My sister Tara got the family home, 4 bedrooms, wraparound porch, a koi pond my dad spent 2 summers building, appraised at $520,000. 2 vehicles, a 2020 Ford Explorer and a 2022 Chevrolet Tahoe. Investment accounts totaling $245,000. All told, roughly $850,000 in assets handed to one daughter. I got 240 acres of cracked, sun-bleached nothing in deep West Texas. The land that hadn't seen a working fence post since the mid-90s. Kind of land that looks like the earth just gave up. County appraised surface value, $18,400. My mother looked me dead in the eyes across a lawyer's desk and called it equal. The whole family called it the scrubland. Said it like they were doing me a favor just by acknowledging it existed, like they were handing me a participation trophy at a game I'd already lost. And for about 2 weeks I believed them. I had the pen in my hand. My brother-in-law Marcus had found the buyer, scheduled the closing attorney, mentally spent his finder's fee. All I had to do was sign. I didn't sign. And what happened next, what I found in a dusty equipment shed, what a geologist said on my porch, what was written in a brown leather notebook inside a cardboard box marked with my father's name, it changed everything. Not just financially. Everything. But none of that makes sense without the full picture. So let me back up. I'm a structural engineer at a private consulting firm in Austin, Texas. I design load-bearing systems, analyze soil compaction reports, do site assessments for commercial builds around the state. I earn $72,000 a year. I drive a 12-year-old Toyota Camry with a crack in the dashboard I keep meaning to get fixed and never do. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in the Mueller neighborhood with a balcony that overlooks a parking garage. Not glamorous, but mine. I was the first person in my family either side to earn a 4-year degree. Full academic scholarship to Texas A&M Civil and Structural Engineering. I left my hometown of Haskins, Texas the summer I turned 18. Haskins, population 3,200. 1 gas station, 1 diner that served the same chicken fried steak every Tuesday, and 1 Baptist church that people called the church that mattered, even though there were 2 others in town. My dad, Roy, spent 28 years as a high-voltage line technician for the Regional Electric Cooperative. Before dawn, heavy gear, rain or shine, wind or ice storm. He was the kind of man who could eyeball a power line splice from 50 feet away and tell you within a millimeter if something was off. Quiet man. Observant. Kind of person who notices what other people step over without slowing down. My mom, Sandra, stayed home and raised us. My sister Tara is 5 years older. She married Marcus Hensley at 23, had 2 kids, Jalen, who's 7 now, and Camille, who's 5, and never moved more than 4 miles from the house she grew up in. In my family, staying was the highest virtue. Leaving for a college degree was ambition. And ambition was treated like a personality defect you could grow out of if someone prayed hard enough. Here's something nobody in that family ever said out loud, not even once. For 7 straight years after I graduated, I wired $500 a month back home. Automatic transfer first of every month straight into the family account. I covered grocery gaps. I paid my dad's cardiac medication copays when his insurance lapsed between jobs. I sent extra whenever there was a busted pipe or a car repair or a vet bill for the old dog that nobody wanted to put down. 7 years. $42,000 total. My mom never told Tara. Not at Thanksgiving. Not at Christmas. Not once. She just cashed the transfers and let Tara believe I was too caught up in my big city career to give a damn about home. And she let me call on my dad's birthday every year and hear him say, "We're doing just fine, Beck," while the money I'd sent the week before was paying for his blood pressure medication. Then Dad got sick. ALS. Just over 2 years from the first symptom to the end. The last 5 months he couldn't speak clearly. Final 3, not at all. I drove from Austin to Haskins every other weekend during those last months, 6 hours round trip every 2 weeks, burning through vacation days like they were going out of style. I paid out of pocket for 2 neurologist consultations his insurance wouldn't touch. I never said a word about any of it because Roy was dying and the last thing he needed to hear about was money. The funeral, Tara sat front row beside Mom. I sat 3 rows back next to Aunt Ruth, my dad's younger sister who drove up from Abilene. Nobody asked me to speak. Pastor Hendricks, who had known our family for 20 solid years, eulogized my father as a devoted family man, a loving husband and a proud father of his daughter Tara. Singular. Daughter. Tara. I let it go. I sat in that pew with my hands folded in my lap and I let it go, because Roy was gone and his funeral was not the place to litigate the last 30 years. 6 weeks later, we gathered in the office of Mr. Calloway, the family's estate attorney. Downtown Haskins, wood-paneled walls, a ceiling fan with a click on every rotation that you started anticipating after about 30 seconds. Mr. Calloway was 68 years old and had been handling my parents' affairs since before I was born. He had a manila folder, a glass of sweet tea, and the expression of a man bracing himself. Present, Mom, Tara, Marcus, me, Mr. Calloway, and Aunt Ruth, who had driven up again from Abilene and sat in the corner chair with her reading glasses and a stillness about her that I recognized as the specific calm of a person who already knows how this is going to go. Marcus leaned over to Tara as we settled in. He didn't bother lowering his voice. This shouldn't take long. Not like there's a whole empire to carve up. I folded my hands and looked at the ceiling fan. Mr. Calloway opened the folder. Read for 2 minutes. 2 minutes was all it took. To Tara Lynn Hensley, the family residence at 308 Granger Road, Haskins, Texas, appraised at $520,000. 2 vehicles. Investment accounts held at Fidelity, current balance approximately $245,000. He paused. Sipped his tea. To Rebecca and Hartwell, 240 acres, Dawson County, Texas, parcel 14. Surface and mineral rights conveyed in full. No existing structures or improvements of significant value. County appraised surface value, $18,400. The ceiling fan clicked. I looked at the number. Then at Tara's column. Then back at mine. My mother had signed this. Witnessed and notarized. Called it 50-50 with a straight face. If you already feel something right now, drop a comment. I felt that. Tell me what city you're in. Tell me what time it is where you are. Tara didn't look at me. Marcus pressed his lips together in the specific way of someone trying not to grin and losing the battle. Mom sat perfectly straight, hands folded, face blank, the expression of someone who rehearsed this moment. Mr. Calloway reached across the desk and handed me an envelope. Old manila, corners gone soft. On the front, in my father's careful block letters, parcel 14, Dawson County. And in the lower right corner, just my name. Becca. No last name. No instructions. Just my name. Aunt Ruth caught my eye from across the table. One slow shake of her head. Just once. The only honest gesture in that whole room. I held that envelope and thought, so this is what I'm worth to them. We filed out into the hallway. Fake plant in the corner. Carpet that smelled like old paper and recycled air. I stopped my mother before she reached the exit. You really think that's fair? She turned around. Purse on her arm, keys already in hand. She looked at me the way you look at a wrong number, politely, distantly, already moving on. Your father wanted you to have that land. It was meaningful to him. He bought it himself. Mom! Tara got $850,000. I got $18,000. She didn't blink. Dirt is dirt, Becca. You got your half. Said it like a grocery list item. No defensiveness, no guilt, no hesitation. Tara stayed, she continued. Tara took care of this family. Tara has children. You have your career. She said career the way some people say inconvenience. I looked past her. Tara was by the exit, eyes on the floor, keys in hand. She heard every word. Said nothing. Marcus held the door for Mom and gave me a look on the way out. Equal parts pity and satisfaction, the expression of a man who thinks he just watched someone lose a game they didn't even know they were in. I stood in that hallway. Envelope against my chest. Father's handwriting against my palm. Then I walked out and drove 6 hours back to Austin. That should have been the end of it. 2 weeks later, Marcus called. His voice had that smooth, real estate agent quality he'd been cultivating since his insurance job dried up and he moved into property management. Hey, Becca. Got a guy interested in that Dawson County parcel. Cash offer. Quick close. 18 grand and you're done. He mentioned property taxes. Said they'd eat me alive out there. I looked them up that night. $210 a year on 240 acres of unimproved land. He'd inflated the actual number by a factor of 8. The buyer was a man named Todd Bellamy, Marcus's golf buddy. I didn't know this yet, but I would. Tara called separately. Same script, different voice. Just sell it, Becca. It's not worth the headache. You don't know anything about ranching. Move on. Then I got a text I wasn't expecting. Calvin Reyes, a guy I went to A&M with, who now ran environmental soil assessments for a data firm based in Dallas with operations across West Texas, texted me out of nowhere. Hey, saw your name on a Dawson County parcel filing. That your family's land? Small world. I texted back a quick yeah and didn't think much of it. But that text was the first pebble before the avalanche. That night I sat on my couch with Marcus's purchase agreement in my hand. 1 page. $18,000 for 240 acres. I picked up the pen. Then I looked at the kitchen table. The manila envelope was propped against the pepper grinder. Dad's handwriting catching the light. Parcel 14. Becca. I put the pen down. I wasn't going to sell something my father left me without at least standing on it first. I owed him that much. I folded the contract, dropped it in the junk drawer, booked a Friday off work and drove west. The drive from Austin to Dawson County was 5.5 hours. West on I-10 past Junction, then north on State Highway through country so flat you could see the curvature of the earth. No cell signal for the last 40 minutes. Just wind and sky. I found the parcel markers, orange survey caps in cracked caliche, the rock-hard, chalky soil common across dry West Texas, and stepped out onto my inheritance. 240 acres of mesquite, dried creek bed, and silence. Kind of silence that has actual weight to it. I walked the property for 90 minutes. Near the northeast corner, there was an old concrete derrick footer. No rig, just the base and some rusted anchor bolts, like something had once been here and left in a hurry. About 300 yards south of that, an equipment shed. Corrugated steel walls, half the roof buckled. Padlock crumbled when I touched it. Inside, a folding lawn chair. A metal toolbox. Plastic bin full of papers curled at the edges. And underneath the bin, a cardboard box with Roy written on the side in my mom's handwriting. I didn't open the box. Not then. I just stood there in that corrugated steel shed and felt the stillness settle into me. Then I walked back outside and stood in the middle of nothing. Here's the thing about being a structural engineer, you notice things. It's not something you turn off. The soil color shifted near the dry creek bed on the south end. Exposed rock face with dark shale and an unusual layering pattern I recognized from geological textbooks but had never seen in person, not in West Texas. A formation depth profile that didn't belong this far east on any map I'd studied. I took 6 photographs. Close-ups. Wide angles. One of the derrick footer for scale. The land was harsh and dry and silent. But standing on it, I felt something I hadn't felt since the week my dad died. like he was leaving me a message in a language I hadn't quite learned to read yet. I drove home with my photos, a headache, and a feeling in my chest I couldn't shake loose. 2 weeks later, the language started to translate. I'd pulled up the Dawson County property records online. Public access takes about 3 minutes, mostly to verify the deed before making any final call. And that's when I saw it. Not the surface value. Not the tax records. The deed language itself. For words I'd nearly skimmed past, including all mineral rights. Stop right here. If this just clicked for you, if you felt the floor shift, hit like right now. This is the moment. Now, if you didn't grow up in Texas, here's what you need to understand. In this state, surface rights and mineral rights are two completely separate legal estates. You can own every inch of ground someone walks on and own nothing underneath it. Or the reverse. These rights get severed, sold, traded, and fractured across generations until sometimes 40 different parties hold a sliver of the same mineral interest. In the Permian Basin, mineral acres were selling at $20,000 to $30,000 per acre. Per acre. Not per parcel. I had nearly signed away 240 mineral acres for $18,000. I closed my laptop. Thinned it. Ran the math again. Conservative, 240 acres at $20,000 per mineral acre. That's $4.8 million. Conservative. I stared at Marcus's unsigned contract next to the pepper grinder. Friday came. I didn't call Marcus back. Monday. Tuesday. I wasn't ready. I was still calculating. Still verifying. Still doing what my family had always criticized me for. Obsessing over every detail before committing to anything. And then on a Tuesday morning, 10:52 a.m., I remember because the news was on mute and my second cup of coffee was still hot, my doorbell rang. The man standing outside was sunburned, mid-50s, reading glasses pushed up on his forehead, and a rolled geological survey map tucked under his arm. His truck in the parking lot had a company placard on the door. He offered a business card. Dr. James Whitfield. Senior Geologist. Permian Reach Energy Partners. Ma'am, he said, are you the owner of Parcel 14, Dawson County? I nodded. He got right to it. No small talk, no preamble. He told me his firm had been surveying the Dawson County corridor for 18 months. New horizontal drilling data had confirmed the eastward extension of a productive shale formation, farther east than any existing map had accounted for. They'd already secured mineral leases from 5 adjacent landowners. My parcel sat on what they believed was the eastern edge of something very significant. Significant how? I asked. Can't quantify until we run core samples and seismic analysis. But I don't knock on apartment doors for dust, Ms. Hartwell. No sales pitch. No inflated enthusiasm. Just the measured, specific, unembellished cadence of a man who works in science, not marketing. I respected it immediately. I signed the survey consent form on my kitchen counter. No cost to me. 3 to 4 weeks for results, zero obligation either direction. He paused at the door on his way out. Your father acquired this parcel at a county land auction back around 2002, correct? How'd you know that? County records. Common by. Most bidders at that sale went straight for the irrigated parcels. Your dad went after this one, no water table to speak of, useless for ranching or farming. But that dry formation profile. He tapped the rolled map under his arm. That's exactly what we look for. I watched his truck pull away. Stood on my porch in the Austin heat until the dust settled. My dad was a high-voltage line technician from a small Texas town. A man who could read land the way other people read faces. In 2002, at a county land auction, he spent $14,000 in cash on 240 acres of nothing, while everyone else bid on the irrigated parcels with the decent topsoil. And he left it to me. That night I worked the way I work when a problem really matters. Texas Railroad Commission website, production data for Dawson County. for new horizontal drilling permits issued in the past 20 months, all within 10 miles of Parcel 14. Reported production from the Wolfcamp Formation, 280 to 450 barrels per day from the nearest active well. Multi-stage hydraulic fracturing, commonly known as fracking, the process of injecting pressurized fluid to crack open deep rock and release oil and gas. The exact technology that had turned the Permian Basin into the most productive oil-producing region in the Western Hemisphere. I cross-referenced geological surveys, matched formation depths against the 6 photos I'd taken at the dry creek bed. The layering pattern matched. The depth profile matched. The shale coloration matched. I opened a spreadsheet. I'm an engineer. This is what we do when the stakes get real. We don't guess. We calculate. 240 net mineral acres. Conservative lease signing bonus, $4,200 per acre. That's just over $1 million before a single barrel comes up. Royalty rate on production if the play proved out, 22 to 25%. Projected monthly royalties based on adjacent well output, $10,000 to $16,000 per month. Per month. Ongoing. I sat at my kitchen table at 1 a.m. The unsigned contract was still in my junk drawer. $15,000. Quick close. No hassle. I ran the numbers a 4th time because that's the kind of engineer I am. They held. Dirt is dirt, Mom. I needed to go back. Because there was still a cardboard box in that equipment shed marked Roy in my mother's handwriting, and I hadn't opened it yet. And something in me, the same instinct that had made me put down the pen in the first place, said that box was the real inheritance. I drove back the following Saturday. Same flat highway, same long silence past the last cell tower. This time when I turned onto the road near the parcel, Dr. Whitfield's survey crew was already set up. White trailer on the south end, cables stretched across the caliche, a woman in a hard hat near the exposed shale outcropping who waved when I drove past. I parked by the shed. Morning light cut across the floor in one long stripe. The shed smelled like motor oil and cedar and something I can only describe as Roy. His workshop, his truck, the particular atmosphere of a place where my father had spent time alone doing something he believed in. I pulled the cardboard box out from under the plastic bin and sat down on the folding lawn chair with it on my lap. Papers first, the purchase receipt from the 2002 county auction, $14,000 paid cash. A hand-drawn plat map from the early 2000s. Tax receipts going back 15 years, every one of them paid on time. A letter from the county assessor dated 2019 that I set aside. Then, tucked beneath an old insurance folder, wrapped in a Ziploc bag against the moisture, a notebook. Brown leather cover, cracked at the spine, corners rounded soft with years of handling. I opened it. My father's handwriting. Block capitals. Blue ink. First page. Parcel 14 field notes. And below that, in smaller letters, for Becca when the time comes. He wrote my name. Not Tara's. Not Mom's. Mine. I sat in that shed, dust still in the air, survey crew working half a mile away, and I read every page of my father's notebook. When I finished, I understood something that rearranged everything I thought I knew about that inheritance reading. My mother didn't give me this land as a deliberate punishment. She gave it to me because she genuinely believed it was worthless. She thought she was handing me a consolation prize, the leftovers, the booby prize, the parting gift for the daughter who left. She signed that will as executor and assigned the house, the cars, the investments to Tara, and she handed me 240 acres of dirt, never bothering to look at what her husband had spent years quietly protecting. But my father knew. He'd known for years. And he left it to me. Dr. Whitfield called 4 days later. Meet me in person. Wednesday work. We met at a diner in Clover Ridge, the nearest town to the parcel. Population maybe 1,100. Worn linoleum for booths, coffee that tasted like it had been warming since sometime during the previous presidential administration. He unrolled his survey map across the table and pointed to a shaded area. That's your 240 acres. The shading was the same color as the confirmed productive zone 7 miles west. Preliminary assessment is complete. I can't hand you guaranteed production numbers without a test well, but the indicators are as clean as I've seen this far east. Seismic data is consistent with a Wolfcamp play. The Wolfcamp Formation is a deep layer of oil-rich shale that runs through the heart of the Permian Basin. Core samples show organically rich shale at approximately 2,400 feet depth. He leaned back and looked at me over his reading glasses. Don't sell this land for $18,000, Miss Hartwell. Don't sell it for $50,000. Get a mineral rights attorney before you breathe a word of this to anyone. And I mean anyone. He reached into his bag and placed something on the table between our coffee cups. A small glass vial, sealed. Inside, reddish-brown soil, fine-grained, dense. That's your surface, he said. What's underneath it could change your whole life. Then he said something that stopped me. Your father, do you know why the original owner sold this parcel? The one before your dad bought it at auction? I shook my head. Estate sale. Widow couldn't cover the property taxes. The land had been in her husband's family since the 1940s. He was a roughneck. Worked the early Permian plays. He knew exactly what that ground was sitting on. Never had the capital to develop it. Died with the secret. He tapped the map one more time. Your father was the second man in a row to see what everyone else walked past. He packed up his survey, shook my hand, and left. I drove back to Austin with the soil vial on the passenger seat and the notebook in my bag and something buzzing in my chest that wasn't quite excitement, more like the feeling right before you open test results when you already have a pretty good idea what they're going to say. I called Patricia Okafor the next morning. 15 years in Texas oil and gas law, subspecialty in inheritance disputes and royalty negotiation. Office in a converted Victorian in Odessa. 3 cactus plants on the windowsill. The calibrated confidence of someone who has been the smartest person in a lot of rooms and learned not to advertise it. I laid everything out. The deed, the will, Dr. Whitfield's preliminary report, the soil vial, and the notebook. Patricia read the deed twice without a word. Then she looked up. Surface and mineral rights conveyed in full. Unsevered since the original land patent, meaning no one has ever split them apart and sold them separately. You own everything under this parcel, Becca. Every layer. She explained what I'd already begun to piece together. In Texas, mineral rights get severed and traded and fractured across generations until a single well might have 40 partial owners. But Roy had purchased parcel 14 from an estate where the full mineral interest was still intact. Nobody had touched it since the original county grant. The whole estate, his. Whoever valued this parcel at $18,000 either didn't read the deed language, she said, or they read it and hoped you wouldn't. She opened the notebook. Read through it slowly. Closed it the way you close something that matters. Who was trying to buy the land? My brother-in-law's golf buddy. Man named Todd Bellamy. She wrote the name down. Get me full contact details and any written correspondence. I want to run a county recorder search on him. She didn't need to explain why. I already knew. I drove back to Austin with something I hadn't had in 3 months. A clear picture of the board. And for the first time in this whole ordeal, I was the one holding information nobody else had. I read the notebook again that night. Slowly. The way you read something you're going to have to carry. Dad started writing in 2016. Sporadic entries, sometimes months apart. August 2016. Met a retired geologist at the county fair. He said the Wolfcamp Formation might be extending further east than the current maps show. Told me to hold parcel 14. I told Sandra. She said I was watching too much cable news. November 2017. Paid a Texas Tech geology grad student $250 to run a basic soil analysis on the south end. Results preliminary but consistent with what the old-timer said. Need a proper survey eventually. Can't swing it right now. Then the last entry. The handwriting changed. Uneven letters. Words trailing off their lines. Gillis had already begun taking his hands. February 2019. Talked to Sandra again about the land. She said sell it. I said no. Told her it's Becca's. She'll know what to do with it. Sandra said I was being sentimental. I said maybe. But Becca's the one who understands this kind of thing. She's the engineer. She'll figure it out. I set the notebook down. He told her. A full year before that will was signed and notarized, Roy sat my mother down and told her, the land might be worth something significant, it should go to Becca, and Becca would know what to do with it. My mother heard all of that, signed the will, assigned the house and the cars and the investment accounts to Tara, and handed me 240 acres of dirt, because she genuinely thought she was giving me nothing. She didn't give me dirt to punish me. She gave me exactly what my father wanted me to have. She just didn't bother to find out what it was worth. Trisha called 3 weeks later. Sit down. I'm standing. That's fine. Just listen. The certified mineral appraisal was in. Independent valuation, cross-referenced with production data from 5 adjacent wells and current market lease rates for Wolfcamp mineral acres in the Dawson County Eastern Corridor. 240 net mineral acres. Conservative market value if leased for production, $4.4 million. Slightly below my own rough calculation of $4.8 million. Professional appraisals build in risk discounting that back-of-envelope math doesn't. Either way, the number was the same order of magnitude as a small lottery. Projected royalties once the first well came online, $11,000 to $16,000 per month ongoing. I was parked in a grocery store lot on North Lamar in Austin. I read the number 3 times. Then Patricia dropped the second piece. Todd Bellamy filed a deed transfer inquiry at the Dawson County Recorder's office 6 days before Marcus ever called you with the $18,000 offer. He was running title on your mineral estate before you knew he existed as a potential buyer. Before you'd agreed to sell anything. Before you'd heard his name. The silence between us lasted several seconds. Someone tipped him off, I said. The timeline doesn't leave much room for coincidence, she said. Marcus had known. Or figured it out. And he'd brought in his golf buddy to quietly scoop up $4.4 million in mineral rights for the price of a decent used truck. I sat in that parking lot for 25 minutes with the engine off. Then I called Patricia back. What are my options? She laid them out like a site plan. Option 1. Retain the mineral rights. The deed was clean, the will legally valid, no contest basis. Option 2. Execute the mineral lease with Permian Reach Energy Partners. $4,400 per acre signing bonus plus a 22% production royalty. Signing bonus, just over $1 million payable within 30 days. Option 3. Do not volunteer any portion of proceeds to Tara or Sandra. The estate had been divided. Sandra had signed as executor. That was her decision and her signature. Am I being greedy? I asked her. She was quiet for a moment. Then, they split the estate, Becca. Your mother chose the allocation. Your sister accepted her portion without raising a single objection. The legal line is clean. What you do from here is a personal question, not a legal one. I sat with it for 2 days. Am I the kind of person who just takes everything and doesn't look back? Is that who I want to be? And then I remembered. $50 a week at a junior engineer's salary, wired home for 7 years. $42,000 that disappeared without a thank you. The funeral where the pastor named one daughter. The reading room where Marcus almost smiled. The woman who looked me in the eye over an estate settlement and said dirt is dirt. I wasn't being greedy. I was being accurate. I signed the lease on a Thursday. Patricia notarized it. The signing bonus, $1,056,000, hit my account 12 business days later. The mineral lease was filed at the Dawson County Clerk's office the following Monday morning. Public record. Available to anyone with an internet connection and a reason to look. Dawson County has maybe 4,000 residents and no secrets worth keeping. Within 48 hours, the county clerk's filing had made it from the recorder's office to the feed store in Clover Ridge, from the feed store to the church potluck circuit, and from the potluck circuit to Todd Bellamy's phone. Todd called Marcus. Marcus called Tara. Tara called Sandra. By Thursday afternoon, I had 17 missed calls, 11 texts, 3 voicemails. Tara, Becca, call me. Now. This is about Dad's land. Marcus, we need to talk before you do something you can't undo. Sandra, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to call your mother immediately. Tara again louder, I am your sister. I read every single one. Set my phone face down on the counter. Made dinner, leftover chicken and roasted sweet potatoes. Ate at the table. Watched half a documentary. Then went to bed. I did not respond to a single message. Calls escalated. Marcus's voicemails went from smooth to serrated over the next 4 days. Tara's swung between weeping and accusation in the same breath. And then on Friday, my supervisor Dennis, a calm, measured man who had never once inserted himself into my personal life, appeared in my workspace doorway holding a pink message slip and looking like he'd accidentally opened the wrong door at a party. Your mother called the main line, he said. The receptionist had written, Your mother says you have betrayed your family. Please return her call at your earliest convenience. I took the slip. Family situation, I said. It's handled. He nodded and left. I stared at that slip for a full minute. Sandra had called my place of employment. She'd tried to involve my supervisor, my professional reputation, my livelihood, to destabilize me, to shake me loose before I got my footing. She wanted me walking into whatever came next already apologizing. If that was the game she wanted to play, fine. But she was about to play it with all the cards on the table. The knock came Friday night at 9:40 p.m. Peephole, Tara and Marcus. She'd been crying. He had the tight jaw of a man who'd rehearsed. I opened the door. Didn't move aside. Can we come in? Tara asked. You can talk from there. Tara's face crumpled. How could you do this to us? We are family, Becca. Marcus stepped forward. That land should have been split differently. We're contesting the will. Undue influence, your dad wasn't capable of making those decisions. Dad's will was drafted in 2018, I said. Before the advanced stages of his illness. Any incapacity argument cuts both ways, Marcus. And my attorney will cut it back faster than you can file. He pivoted. A court will see inequitable distribution. A court will see a deed that says surface and mineral rights, a will your mother-in-law signed as executor, and 5 adjacent wolf camp wells producing at capacity. Your case falls apart in discovery. Tara grabbed my arm. Becca, please. We're about to lose the house. Marcus's property management business collapsed. We're 3 months behind on everything. Kids need things. Jalen needs occupational therapy. Camille's school has a wait list. I looked at her. Really looked at her. My sister. 5 years older. We used to share a room with a glow-in-the-dark star ceiling our dad stuck up for us one summer night when we couldn't sleep. Tara, I said, as steady as I could make it. You received $850,000 3 months ago. Silence. Where did it go? Marcus grabbed her elbow. Let's go. She's not listening. As they turned, Tara said over her shoulder, Mom's going to talk to everyone at church. She's going to tell people exactly what kind of sister you are. I closed the door. Made chamomile tea. Sat at the table with the notebook and the soil vial and let the weight of it settle. Sandra's campaign ran exactly as I expected. She called Pastor Hendricks. She called the neighborhood association in Haskins. She called Roy's old co-workers at the electric cooperative. She built a narrative the way you build a perimeter fence, post by post until you can't see through it anymore. Her version: Becca found oil money on that land and she's keeping every cent, won't share with her own sister who stayed home, raised her babies, cared for their dying father. Becca took the lucky card and ran. Cousin Zach texted, "Heard you hit the jackpot out there. Tara says you won't help with the kids' school. That true?" Roy's old workmate Darnell called, "Your mama's real torn up, Becca. Is any of this worth it?" Some woman from the church prayer chain left a voicemail about praying for my hardened heart. I didn't respond to any of them. Silence was the only weapon I trusted right then. Calvin Reyes called though, and that one I answered. The A&M connection who'd texted me months ago about seeing my name on a county filing. Turned out his environmental data firm had been contracted to run secondary soil assessments in Dawson County. He'd seen parcel 14 in the project files and made the connection. "I should have called you sooner, Beck. I wasn't sure if it was your family's land or just coincidence. But the formation data out there is real. Like, seriously real." He paused. "You okay?" I thought about that. "I'm figuring it out." One call that truly mattered came from Aunt Ruth. "I know what Sandra did in that reading room," she said. "I watched those numbers land on the desk. You don't owe anyone an explanation. But be careful, your mother is building public opinion before you've had the chance to speak a word of truth." Then Sandra called me directly. Voice controlled, outcome already decided. Family meeting. Sunday after service. Fellowship Hall. Pastor Hendricks is facilitating. I let a beat pass. Fine. I'll be there. She wanted witnesses. She wanted the weight of an entire community leaning on me before I even opened my mouth. She wanted me to walk in softened and already sorry. She didn't know I was bringing documents. I called Patricia Friday morning. 3 seconds of quiet. Then I'll be there. Bring the will, the deed, and the journal. Make copies. I spent Saturday building the file. Not a speech. An engineer's file. Tabbed clean, factual. Tab 1, the will, both pages, Sandra's signature highlighted. Tab 2, the deed, mineral rights clause highlighted in yellow. Tab 3, 3 dated entries from the field notebook, 2016, 2017, and the February 2019 entry. This land is for Becca. She'll know what to do with it. Tab 4, the timeline. Marcus's offer, dated. Todd Bellamy's county recorder inquiry, dated 6 days earlier. Side by side. No commentary. Just dates. I read the notebook one more time that night. The final entry. Roy's handwriting going uneven, letters dropping off the line, but the content still clear, still there, still his. I cried. The first real cry since the morning of the funeral. Not because I was scared of Sunday. Because I missed him. Because he'd believed in me, quietly, steadily, without needing anyone's approval or permission, and on Sunday I was going to honor that in front of every person my mother had recruited against me. I dried my face. Pressed my good navy blazer. Set my alarm for 5:45. Went to bed. I left Austin at 6:15 Sunday morning. 4 hours. The manila envelope on the passenger seat. The folder in back. Church was letting out when I arrived at 11:20. People in their Sunday best drifting toward the fellowship hall next door. I counted at least 20 cars I recognized. Sandra had done her work thoroughly. Trisha pulled in 2 spots down from me. Dark blazer, leather briefcase, flat expression. The expression of a person who has done this before and is not afraid of a church basement. We walked in together. The fellowship hall, folding chairs in a semicircle, a coffee station along the wall, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Smelled like old carpet and whatever someone had reheated for Sunday lunch. I recognized the room from childhood potlucks, vacation Bible school, the reception after Roy's funeral. Sandra sat front and center. Perfect posture. Tara beside her, tissue ready. Marcus on the side, arms crossed, jaw set. Pastor Hendricks near the front, Bible in hand, looking like a man who deeply regrets having picked up the phone when Sandra called. 19 faces turned when I walked in. Sandra's eyes went straight to Patricia. A flicker of something crossed her face. Recalculation. Then the mask went back on. "Who is this?" she said. "My attorney." Marcus puffed up. "You brought a lawyer to a family meeting?" "You brought 19 people to pressure me. I brought one person to protect me." Pastor Hendricks gestured toward the chairs. "Let's all settle down, Anne." Sandra stood. Half sheet of notes folded once in both hands. I recognized the gesture, same posture as the eulogy. "Thank you all for being here. This is painful for our whole family. You knew Roy. You know what kind of man he was." Nods around the room. Mrs. Carver next door brought her hand to her heart. "When Roy passed, we divided the estate as fairly as we could. Both my daughters received their share. But now Becca has found out the land has value, significant value, and she's made the decision to keep every penny of it. After everything this family sacrificed, she let that land. I raised both my daughters the same. I loved them the same. But Tara stayed. Tara sat with Roy through those last months. Tara bathed him, cooked for him, held his hand. And now," her voice caught, "Tara has nothing and my grandchildren are suffering, while Becca holds $1 million lease and says it's hers." Marcus added the legal threat. Undue influence, the claim that Roy was pressured into writing the will the way he did. Diminished capacity, the claim that he wasn't mentally fit to make decisions. Inequitable distribution. Heads around the room began to nod. The jury was warmed up. Then Sandra did something I hadn't seen coming. She set her notes down. Her hands weren't quite steady anymore, and what came out of her wasn't the rehearsed speech. It was something rawer. "Becca," she said, and her voice dropped half a register. "You remind me of Roy's mother. Every single day of my marriage, that woman looked across the table at me like I was something he'd settled for. 20 years of Thanksgivings and Christmases sitting under that woman's eye, feeling like I'd never be enough for her family. And when she passed, I thought it was finally over." She swallowed. "But then there was you. The way you talk. The way you look at me. The way you leave and don't look back. I spent so long afraid of being left. I thought if I kept Tara close, at least someone would stay." The room softened. Visibly. Mrs. Carver reached for Sandra's hand. Uncle Dale rubbed his forehead. Pastor Hendricks set his Bible down. And I felt it too. 4 full seconds. Because that wound was real, Roy's mother had been unkind, and Sandra had carried that for decades, and grief does strange things to people who've never learned to set their fear down. But pain doesn't come with a permission slip. Her wound didn't give her the right to choose which daughter got $850,000 and which got $18,400. It didn't make dirt is dirt an act of love. It didn't excuse 7 years of wired money that nobody acknowledged. I let the 4 seconds pass. Then I opened my folder. "I'm not here to make a speech," I said. "I'm going to read. The will. Both columns. $850,000 to one daughter, $18,400 to the other. My mother called this 50-50. I'd like someone in this room to do that math out loud." Nobody spoke. Mrs. Carver's hand slipped off Sandra's shoulder. The deed. Mineral rights clause highlighted. When my mother signed as executor, she conveyed everything under that land to me. She just didn't think it was worth checking. Then tab 4. The timeline. I set it on the table in front of Marcus. Todd Bellamy filed a title inquiry on Parcel 14 at the Dawson County Recorder's office 6 days before you ever called me with an offer. He was running my mineral estate before I knew he existed as a buyer. Marcus's face went the color of old brick. That isn't. Patricia set the county records on the table beside him. Dates highlighted. The Dawson County Clerk's Office is a public record. Anyone in this room is welcome to verify. The fellowship hall went quiet in a specific way. The way a room goes quiet when something true has entered it and there simply isn't enough noise in the world to cover it up. Then I picked up the notebook. "This is my father's field journal," I said. "I found it in the equipment shed on Parcel 14, in a cardboard box marked with his name." I let them see the cover. Brown leather. Cracked spine. Worn corners. I'm going to read the last entry. February 2019. I read it slowly. The way you read something that belongs to the sacred category. "Talked to Sandra again about the land." She said sell it. I said no. Told her it's Becca's. She'll know what to do with it. Sandra said I was being sentimental. I said maybe. But Becca's the one who understands this kind of thing. She's the engineer. She'll figure it out. The fellowship hall held its breath. If you're still with me right now, pause for 1 second and drop a comment. Just say "still here" or your city. I want to know you're in this with me. Uncle Dale's eyes went wet. Mrs. Carver's hand stayed off Sandra's shoulder this time. Pastor Hendricks hadn't touched his Bible since I started reading. I looked at my mother. "He told you, Mom. A year before that will was signed and notarized, Dad sat you down and said the land might be valuable and it should go to me. And you gave it to me anyway because you thought you were giving me nothing. You thought dirt was dirt." I held the notebook up. "You were wrong. That dirt was everything he had left to give me." Sandra's face went white, then hard. Her jaw clenched. Her voice cracked into something raw and jagged, all the performance stripped away, just fury underneath. "You ungrateful," she stood. Chair scraped the linoleum. "I raised you. I kept this family together while Roy was dying. And you show up here with a lawyer and your documents and you humiliate me in front of my church. Your church family," I said, steady and quiet, "deserved the full story. Not just the version you called ahead to prepare them for." Marcus stepped forward. "We're filing a will contest. Undue influence. Any contest," Patricia said, measured, "will be met with a counterfiling for fraudulent interference with inheritance. The county recorder evidence regarding Mr. Bellamy's inquiry will be part of that record." Marcus's mouth snapped shut. Tara was shaking. "Becca, please. You're my sister. I'm begging you." I looked at her. "Tara. My sister. The girl who used to let me borrow her bike without being asked." "I know you are," I said. "And I'm sorry things are hard. But you received $850,000, Tara. I don't know where it went, and that genuinely is not my problem. I received $18,000 in surface value. And I'm keeping what's mine." Sandra drew in a breath and threw the last thing she had. "Your father would be ashamed of what you've become." I let it sit in the air for 1 full second. "Dad wrote my name in that journal, Mom. Not Tara's. Mine. He said I'd figure it out." I closed the folder. I figured it out. The room heard the difference between a woman who had lost control of the narrative and a woman who had simply been telling the truth from the beginning. "I don't owe this family my inheritance," I said. "I don't owe anyone an apology for knowing what I'm worth. And I'm done doing the math the way you handed it to me." I turned to the room, to Mrs. Carver and Uncle Dale and Pastor Hendricks and all 19 people Sandra had prepared. I left Haskins at 18 years old. I put myself through school on a scholarship. For 7 years I wired $500 a month to this family, $42,000, and nobody knew about it but my mother. Nobody ever said thank you. The one thing they handed me that they all called worthless? That was the thing my father spent years protecting for me. The door, Aunt Ruth caught my hand and held it. Firm. Quick. Real. I walked out into the West Texas afternoon. The hydraulic door swung shut slowly behind me. I could hear Sandra crying. The real kind this time, not the performance. Kept walking. Marcus consulted a lawyer the following week. The attorney told him what Patricia had already said. No viable grounds, will valid, deed clean, mineral rights confirmed. He dropped it. Tara called once, 10 days after the fellowship hall. Her voice was stripped of everything. No crying, no accusation, just tired. "I'm sorry about the math comment," she said. I let the silence breathe. "Yeah," I said. "You should be." 30 seconds of quiet. Then she hung up. No reconciliation. No Hallmark moment. Just two sisters on opposite sides of something that neither of us built and neither of us knew how to cross. Sandra didn't call. Not that week, not the month after. Aunt Ruth told me she'd stopped attending First Baptist and started going to a church in the next town over. She didn't talk about the meeting. She didn't talk about the land. She didn't talk about me. The first royalty check arrived in September, $11,400. I deposited it quietly. No new car. No social post. No performance. Aunt Ruth drove down to Austin and we had dinner at a Mexican place on South Congress. Chiladas, horchata, a long conversation about Roy. She told me about the two-step he used to do in the kitchen whenever something went his way. Arms out, completely terrible rhythm, completely unbothered by it. I laughed until my eyes watered. First real laugh since March. 2 weeks later I put in my notice at the firm. Not out of spite. Out of possibility. I started a structural engineering consultancy focused on rural Texas communities, water distribution systems, bridge assessments, drainage planning for towns that can't afford the big firms. Infrastructure that matters. The mineral income funded the launch. I named the company Parcel 14. Calvin Riz referred my first 3 clients. Turns out a guy whose environmental data firm spans West Texas knows a lot of county engineers who need solid structural analysis on a budget. 6 months after the fellowship hall, I drove back out to the land. Same flat highway, same silence, same sky that takes up your whole field of vision and makes you remember you're small in a way that's actually comforting. But half a mile west of where I'd walked on that first visit, a drilling rig rose against the horizon, 75 feet of steel lights running around the clock, pumping approximately 340 barrels a day from the Wolfcamp Formation. I fixed up the old derrick footer near the northeast corner. Not because it serves any purpose. Because my father chose this land partly because of that concrete base, a remnant from someone else who'd known what was buried there and never gotten the chance to prove it. Some things are worth keeping because someone you loved thought they mattered. The soil vial sits on the windowsill of my home office in Austin. Next to it, the field notebook wrapped in acid-free paper, spine up. Next to that, a framed copy of the first royalty stub. $11,400. Not the biggest number I'll ever see. Just the first honest one. I don't hate my mother. I don't hate Tara. But I've stopped pretending their version of love is the only one worth accepting. I've stopped doing the math they handed me and started doing my own. Some people show you your worth by trying to take it away. Trick is knowing your number before they get the chance. My door is open. The deed stays in my name. The land my family called worthless became the foundation I built my life on. And none of it was really about oil. It was about a man who noticed things other people stepped over without slowing down. Who spent 28 years as a line technician in a small Texas town and used every saved dollar to quietly buy 240 acres of nothing at a county auction, because something in the geology told him to hold it. Who spent years writing in a brown leather notebook and left it in a cardboard box with my name on it, trusting I'd know what to open first. Dad. I figured it out. This story reached you at the right moment. If someone has ever looked you in the eye and told you that what you have is worthless, that who you chose to become isn't enough, do the math yourself. Read the deed language. Find your Aunt Ruth. And don't sign anything until you've stood on what you own and let it tell you what it needs to say. That's my story. 240 acres of West Texas dirt. One geologist who knocked at the right time. One cardboard box marked Roy. And a father who believed in me so quietly and completely that he left me the most valuable thing he had and trusted me to find it. Backhand index pointing down. Drop a comment right now. I read every single one. Tell me, what city and country are you listening from? Drop it below. I want to see exactly where this story is landing. Type your city, your time, your moment. Takes 5 seconds and it means everything to me. And tell me, which part hit you hardest? Was it the 7 years of $500 transfers nobody ever said thank you for? Was it Roy's handwriting in that last notebook entry? Was it the moment Becca put the pen down? Or something else entirely? Leave it in the comments. This story only travels as far as the people who carry it. If it moved you, share it right now before you scroll past. Send it to your sister, your cousin, the friend who's been told their worth by the wrong people, person who keeps signing things they shouldn't. Hit like if you believe the right people always find what they're owed, even when they have to find it themselves. Share this story if you know someone who needs to hear it today. You might not know they need it. Share it anyway. And one more thing, if you've lived a version of this story, if your family called something worthless that wasn't, if someone underestimated you and you proved them wrong, I want to hear it. Drop it in the comments. Your story matters. Every word of it. I'll see you in the next one. Don't miss it. Follow so you don't scroll past.